Hey there, it is Rob from Crypto Bobby, and today I want to talk to you about crafting your portfolio, specifically how much Bitcoin and Ethereum should you have in comparison to everything else. Basically, how much Bitcoin and Ethereum should you hold in your portfolio in comparison to the altcoins? And it's something that I am working on right now, trying to figure out for myself, trying to determine really what the proper amount of kind of the maybe quote unquote large cap coins I should hold in comparison to these smaller moonshot type plays where I'm trying to get these large outsized returns. So let's dive into it today. And as far as things go, when I'm looking at the market as of today, August 25th, there's been a couple really, kind of interesting things that have happened, I think, within the past month or so, really within August. The altcoin rally within the past few months had somewhat cooled down a little bit. And while the altcoin rally has cooled down, Bitcoin itself has really taken off, obviously, to essentially new all-time highs almost every single week within August. And I have admittedly been pretty heavy in altcoins from prior to the rally, during the rally, after the rally, and haven't redistributed as much of my portfolio into Bitcoin as would have been effective, most likely. So this has kind of led me to evaluate where I should keep the majority of my cryptocurrency from a portfolio perspective. How much should I invest in Bitcoin? How much should I invest in Ethereum? I am positive on both. I am high on both. And then what I should look at from the perspective of altcoins and where should I put my money there, whether it's in new ICOs or if it's in other existing cryptocurrencies that I think might be undervalued or have really big long-term potential. So, when we are talking about things, I guess let's kind of go into, one thing in general, and I'll pull up here just so you can kind of see my portfolio right now. So right now, if I actually refresh this, so this is as of August 25th. And this is my portfolio in relation to its fiat holdings. So if I have $10,000 in my portfolio, as an example, 28% of that is in Ethereum. So I'd have $2,800 essentially in Ethereum. And then Bitcoin, which I'm light on, I would have out of $10,000, I have about $740 worth of Bitcoin. So this just kind of goes to show where my head's at from a portfolio balancing perspective. And because of where I'm at right now, because of some of the ICOs I participated in, because of some of the success I've had, I'm a little bit more, I would say, overexposed to certain things like Civic than perhaps I'd like, and I'd maybe rather have that. While I am high on Civic and I do want to maintain the majority of my stake there, I also would like more exposure to Bitcoin, and rather than dumping more fiat into crypto while Bitcoin is at an all-time high, it might make sense, I think, in my mind, for me to rebalance that portfolio. And this is kind of what I'm getting at in regards to how should you craft your portfolio. Should it be something where you have 25% Bitcoin, 25% Ethereum, 50% 50% altcoins, or should it be 40% Bitcoin, 40% Ethereum, 20% altcoins, or trying to figure out what the best way for things to go. And it doesn't even need to be Bitcoin versus Ethereum being stable or anything of that, or being together. You could be pretty much all in on Bitcoin, you could be all in on Ethereum, whatever it might be. But I think you should have a specific strategy associated with things so that you can kind of let that guide you in the markets from here on out. And I think that's important because there's going to be a difference here when it comes to cryptocurrency in general and from a market movement perspective. I think, the big thing, and a lot of people, and I honestly, this blows my mind when people talk about this, but what you want to look at is not necessarily the price, the fiat price of a cryptocurrency. What you want to look at is the market cap in a lot of respects. When you're talking about future growth potential. So when I'm looking at investments, I'm really looking at future growth potential because I'm investing in cryptocurrency because I want larger returns than I could get elsewhere, and because I enjoy the space, the technology, it's interesting. We're part of this incredible movement. But when somebody goes out there and says, I see a lot of people saying, okay, these are the best 5 coins under $5. Who cares if a coin is under $5 if the market cap is if it's a multi-billion-dollar market cap? Take Ripple, for example. Yes, Ripple is under $1. Yes, Ripple is under 25 cents, but it's also an $8 $8 billion market cap. So for Ripple to go from 21 cents to 42 cents, it's going to have to go up $8 billion in total valuation. That's a huge move. So when people talk about, oh, certain things are, XYZ is under certain amounts, that gives it more room to move. That has nothing to do with anything. Yes, the price per crypto or per token in that case is cheaper, but if the market cap is already massive, like something like Ripple, it's going to take a lot more for that to move. So that's just one quick kind of caveat I think is important and I want to make. And the reason I say that is because when I'm investing in Bitcoin, when I'm investing in Ethereum, something with a multi-billion dollar market cap, it's going to take those cryptocurrencies a lot more to move than it will, let's say a random $80 million, let's say District OX. It's going to be a lot easier for a District OX DNT to move with an $89 million market cap as compared to Bitcoin, which almost has an $89 billion market cap. It's minus 18 billion. But that's something that you want to be aware of when you're crafting your strategy. And I think, in my opinion right now, Bitcoin and Ethereum are on a long upwards trajectory. They're going to continue to move in a solid upward direction. Yes, there could be corrections in the near term. Yes, Bitcoin could potentially go down to $3,000, maybe $2,000, whatever it might be. There could be a correction. But when you look back in 5 years, I don't think that Bitcoin's price right here is going to be below in 5 years. I don't think Ethereum's price is going to be below what it is in 5 years. And sometimes you want to have that type of time horizon. You want to try and think long term and not just like about what's going to happen next month if you are investing for the long term. So that gives me the confidence that in my mind, I'm saying I want to have more money in Bitcoin. I want to have more money in Ethereum. And I want that to be a core portion of my portfolio. But when I do have that money in there, the one thing that I'm not expecting is necessarily a 10x gain with Bitcoin or a 10x gain with Ethereum. Because if Bitcoin were to go up 10x, you would have a $700 million market cap and you would have a price of $40,000 per Bitcoin. Obviously, that'd be fantastic. I'd be doing well. You'd probably be doing well. If Ethereum went up 10x, you'd have a $300 billion valuation and $3,000 plus per Ethereum. Obviously, I'd be really happy about that. You'd be doing well. I'd be doing well. But it's from a near-term perspective, going up 10x in a Bitcoin or an Ethereum is somewhat unrealistic. So maybe you shouldn't expect that. But you can really expect, you can expect to see nice longer-term gains as you've seen with something like Bitcoin. So if I pull up Bitcoin here, the long-term gains have been pretty significant, especially within the past year. That's been a nice, steady move. So that's something, that I'd like to participate in, but it's still, for the most part, Bitcoin's 10x gain has already happened. That doesn't mean that other cryptocurrencies can't have those gains though. So, when I'm looking at the other aspects of my portfolio, crafting the other portion of my portfolio, I'm looking elsewhere where I can get that 10x gain that I likely won't get with, have with Bitcoin or Ethereum, but it's going to present more risk. Let's say if I invest in OMG, or we can go back and use DNT as an example, just with its market value cap, District OX. So if I go back and we're looking at this right now, I have a little bit of money in DNT, nothing crazy, but if I'm looking at District OX right now, with that being said, it's at $89 million in market cap. If District OX takes off and becomes, let's say, a top 20, top 25 cryptocurrency, it could go up to $300, $400 million in market cap, which is a pretty significant return. You're talking about maybe like a 5x return on investment, which could happen realistically with some of these smaller coins. Something gets pumping, it could happen realistically within the course of a month or two. It could go from being worth $90 million to being worth well above that. That type of movement right now likely isn't going to happen with an Ethereum or with a Bitcoin, just due to the overall size of their market caps, at least in my opinion. We're talking about $71 billion and $30 billion respectively as compared to an $89 million market cap move. So that's something that, you want to keep an eye on. But, yes, DNT could go up to 400, 500, $500 million market cap. It could go and significantly, kill it from a percentage gain perspective. But the one thing that you want to be aware of is there's also a lot bigger chance for something like a DNT to completely fail, to kind of go down to zero or go down close to zero, rather than Bitcoin or Ethereum. I think Bitcoin and Ethereum, they have legs, they have an established user base, they've kind of proven themselves as technology. Something like DNT, something like Monaco, whatever it might be, all these coins that are kind of in that like 40 to 100 range on coin market cap, that might be between maybe $150 million market cap and a $20 million market cap, they could easily 10x, or, and I should probably stop saying 10x, because I'm not referring to the pay token. I'm referring to the fact that they would go up 1,000% in valuation. So they could easily rise like 1,000% in valuation, but they could just as easily pretty much go down to zero, and you could lose the majority of your money. So when you are putting your portfolio together, I think personally, you want to have a balance of like moonshots versus the slow. Even though Bitcoin and Ethereum really haven't been slow in the past couple, in the past year, I think they're going to slow down from a gains percentage. I hope not, but I think they're going to slow down from a gains percentage. But you want to have a balance of kind of the slow and steady crypto blue chip like Microsoft, Apple stocks like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, and then you also want to have a little bit of these like smaller market cap stocks that have the potential to go through the roof and be something that could really boost your portfolio. And then when that happens, what you can do is you can rebalance more of that money into Bitcoin. You can rebalance more of that money into Ethereum if you'd like, or you could let it ride. But that's kind of my strategy right now, is looking at this. And I think when I'm crafting my portfolio at this point in time, I like the percentage I have with ETH, around 28% of my portfolio. I am looking to increase my stake in Bitcoin, whether that comes from more fiat investment, or if that comes from rebalancing some of the things that I'm really strong in, like Civic or like OMG, although I kind of like my percentage in OMG around that 15%. I'm confident in that. But I am looking to increase my stake in Bitcoin, but it's kind of tough to think about putting more fiat in when it's at an all-time high. So potentially moving some of something from Civic or somewhere else to give me more exposure into Bitcoin, because I think I'm light on that, and I've missed out on gains because of it. And I am in a position where I want to be getting more of those Bitcoin gains in the future as well. And I think that type of slow, steady improvement is something that is going to continue to happen with Bitcoin, and I'd like to be more of a part of it rather than just 7% of my portfolio. So that's kind of how I'm looking to craft things, is probably having about 25 to 30% Ethereum, probably about 25% Bitcoin, 25-30% Bitcoin. So really having about 50% of my portfolio Ethereum and Bitcoin combined, and then the other 50% these kind of moonshots. So and not necessarily crazy moonshots. I'm not talking about like super small market caps, but at the same time, I kind of like that range between right now like $50 million and $250 million. I feel like that's established enough where it's not completely illiquid and it's not like a total crap coin, but it still has enough room to, if it takes off, it still could potentially go up 5,000 or 500%, 600, 700%, and still be under $1 billion in market cap potentially. So that's really interesting, and that's kind of where my head's at from an overall portfolio crafting perspective. If you have a specific strategy around what you're doing with your portfolio, I'd really like to hear it, because this is still something I'm developing in my head at this point in time, is what is going to be the optimal strategy moving forward. And this certainly can change over time. The crypto markets are extremely fluid. What worked maybe 6 months ago doesn't necessarily work now, but I'd love to hear, maybe what your split is, or kind of what you're doing from a Bitcoin and Ethereum versus altcoin standpoint. How much percent do you have kind of in each? That would be really cool to hear. That'd be interesting. I would appreciate it. And if you are new to the channel, Crypto Bobby here, I would love a subscribe. That would be fantastic. I'd come out with daily videos on what's going on in the crypto world, and also just some things like this from an overall strategy perspective of what do I expect to happen and kind of how am I moving my money. I'm not an expert in this field, but I am just trying to learn as much as possible and kind of learn with you through this process of these daily videos and some of the live streams that I do. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I really do appreciate it. If you're buying, if you're trading, if you're holding, if you're selling, I don't really care what you're doing, but thanks a lot for your time. Good luck. Best of luck for you. Crypto Bobby. Peace.